Watching Morning Live now, President Cyril Ramaphosa has recently signed the new National Qualifications Framework Amendment Act, which prevents individuals from misrepresenting their qualifications. Now, this new law allows for the South African Qualifications Authority, SAQA, to establish and maintain a register of people who misrepresented their qualifications and education credentials. Now, in the event that people are found guilty, they could receive a hefty fine and or face 5 years imprisonment. And joining us now from our studio in Pretoria is Joe Samuels, the CEO of SAQA, to talk about the new act. Thanks so much for your time, Joe, this morning, and welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you very much.
So if you could just briefly take us through this in terms of what the act entails and also SAQA's views on this.
Yeah, Zakina, there are two things that I want to just emphasize. The first one is that the NQF Amendment Act deals with the question about misrepresentation of individual qualifications. It also deals with the misrepresentation of providers, so those people who lie and say that they are offering qualifications that are registered on the National Qualifications Framework, and secondly that they are accredited to offer these particular qualifications. So the Amendment Act also expresses a view in terms of them, and they can also go into this register of misrepresented qualifications. And as with regard to the individuals, they can go to a court of law, and the court of law can find them to be involved in fraudulent acts. And then there's also fines as well as a prison sentence that they can be given.
Now, how big is this problem of falsifying or, misrepresenting qualifications, both on an individual level as well as at institutional level, Joe?
Look, we have found that over the years that there has been a decrease, for all the qualifications that we have verified. However, there are problems with regard to providers who don't register, particularly at the schooling level and at provincial levels. We also find that legal institutions, they get accredited to offer particular qualifications, but what they then do, they also add additional qualifications to that list, which they don't have permission to offer. So those are some of the problems that we've experienced over the last while, and there have also been a number of high-profile cases that I'm sure quite a lot of people are aware of.
So with regard to that, I assume that this act will not be looked at retrospectively. So people who have presented, and as you say, there are examples of quite high-profile cases, they would get away with it, or am I wrong in that regard?
Look, let me say that the President has published the act for public information. So the Act also says that the President must proclaim the Act within a government gazette. So it is not in effect yet. Your point that you make is absolutely correct, in the sense that we will be moving forward now from the point when the President has proclaimed the Act.
As far as SAQA is concerned, if you could just give us an indication of how you actually go about verifying and regulating qualifications.
Yeah, the first thing is that all qualifications that are offered within the Republic, it must be registered on the National Qualifications Framework. So we have set up the framework, we have set up the rules and so on, and there is a process whereby institutions submit their qualifications to our quality councils, and the Quality Councils in turn recommended to SAQA for registration. Then secondly, when it comes to the verification, when people apply for particular jobs, and SAQA has got this responsibility that we were given from the Public Service and Administration Department to verify government qualifications. So we verify the qualification, and if we find that it is misrepresented, we will then put it on the list of misrepresented qualifications. And then we will also take the matter to the police, and then through the court of law, the court can then decide whether it is fraudulent or not. And then there's a second register that the Act provides for. And so if a person or if an institution is found to have acted fraudulently, their names will then go onto the fraudulent list.
And just by way of clarity, and I see some people have actually asked this question, why is lying about your qualifications actually considered a criminal act?
Well, I think on the one hand, what one wants to do is to make sure that the integrity of the education and training system, is intact. Yeah, so I'm talking here, particularly when it comes to institutions that misrepresent what it is that they're doing. South Africa also is a country, where there's vast inequality, and you find that many poor people go to these institutions, they pay a lot of money, and then in fact they then find out that these qualifications doesn't mean anything. So in broad terms, I think it's about the integrity of the education and training system. It's also to protect the public against unscrupulous providers. And then on the other hand, if, for example, you apply for a particular job and you misrepresent your qualification to an employer or to the state, it actually, causes a lot of, economic hardship and so on.
Well, thank you so much, and I hope that provides greater clarity. Joe Samuels is the CEO of SAQA, elaborating on the new National Qualifications Framework Amendment Act. And remember, that also speaks to our question of the day this morning, where we're asking for your views on what is contained therein at the moment. And just to recap that question, what are your thoughts on the new National Qualifications Framework Amendment Act, which could see job seekers face up to 5 years in jail for misrepresenting qualifications on their CVs? That's our question to you. And remember, the Act also speaks to institutions that offer fraudulent qualifications. Let's leave that there for the time being and take a quick break.